What's up guys, Mike here, and today we are taking a look at 5 NBA records that will never be broken. Now the title is very self-explanatory, but I just want to say wait until the end because I'm doing another giveaway. So details for that will be at the end of this video, but until then, let's jump into this. Number 5. The NBA's greatest turnaround. The 2007 Boston Celtics were, to put it simply, awful. They won 24 games, had a stretch where they went just 2-22 after Paul Pierce went down with an injury, and started Delonte West, Gerald Green, and Ryan Gomes. Just looking at their 2007 roster, it seemed impossible that the Celtics would even compete for a championship in the next 5 years, let alone win one the next season. But we all know what happened next. The Celtics managed to flip their number 5 pick, Jeff Green, to the Sonics for Ray Allen, and then somehow were able to acquire Kevin Garnett in a deal that they obviously won, only really giving up Al Jefferson and some future picks. Suddenly, after finishing with the second worst record in the NBA in 2007, the 2008 Celtics were the best team in the NBA. They proceeded to win 66 games, a 42-win improvement, and then went on to win the NBA championship. But what we're focusing on is that 42-win turnaround, because it seems unlikely that this type of improvement will ever be matched. In order for the Celtics to achieve this record, they needed the perfect storm of circumstances. In the season before the turnaround, they had 1, a bad team, which isn't rare, but 2, they also had a franchise superstar miss a lot of time with injury, thus giving them more losses than they should have had, and 3, tradable assets and a team willing to trade away a superstar. And then, after making 2 of the most notable trades of the last 20 years within months of each other, the Celtics had the following going for them in season. 1, the Eastern Conference was pretty weak this year as 2 teams made the playoffs with losing records. And 2, they had 3 aging superstars who were desperate to win their first championship. Stars who treated every regular season game like it was a playoff game. Add all of these circumstances together and you get a potentially unbreakable record. I mean, seriously, the Celtics improved by 42 wins. 42 wins is usually enough to make the playoffs. And that was how much they improved by. The next highest improvement in a single season was the 96 Spurs, who only improved by 36 wins. And they went from starting Carl Herrera and Will Perdue at power forward and center to Tim Duncan and David Robinson. So trust me when I say this, a 42-win turnaround is insane. Number 4. Most technical fouls in one season. Today we remember Rasheed Wallace as the man who taught us the truthful nature of a basketball. But at the turn of the century, Rasheed had a very different reputation as the biggest hothead in the history of the NBA. In the 2001 NBA season, Rasheed Wallace had an incomprehensible 41 technical fouls. That's 1 technical foul every other game. To put that number into perspective, the league leader in technical fouls for the 2016 season was DeMarcus Cousins with 17. Now the reason for this disparity and the reason that no one will ever top 41 technical fouls again in a season is the NBA is now obsessed with their image. But back in 2001, things were very different. It was a simpler time, a time where Rasheed Wallace could receive 41 technical fouls and still play in 77 games, while only paying $20,500 in fines. This would all be impossible now, as the NBA made a drastic change to their rules for the 2006 season that are still in play today. These new rules made each fine from a technical foul more expensive, and also created a 1-game suspension after a player's 16th technical foul in a season. And every 2 technical fouls after 16 causes an additional 1-game suspension. Of course, once these rules were put into place, only 1 player received a suspension for racking up too many techs in the 2006 NBA season. That man was Rasheed Wallace. And so, Sheed's 2001 record is practically unbreakable, because if a player had 41 technical fouls in the current NBA season, he would be suspended a total of 13 games. This would only give him 69 games to receive 41 technical fouls, already giving a man of Rasheed's era a distinct advantage. On top of this, he would receive $87,500 worth of fines, over 4 times the amount Rasheed paid in 2001. And let's be honest here, if a player actually got 41 technical fouls in the current NBA, I'm pretty sure he would be put in jail. The current NBA is not messing around when it comes to their image, so we can safely say that Rasheed Wallace will forever live in the NBA history books. Number 3. Most assists in an NBA career. When discussing NBA legends, here's something that nobody really talks about. John Stockton was the most consistent point guard in NBA history, and it's not even close. Over his 19-year career, Stockton played in 1,504 games, while racking up a league record 15,806 assists. And here's why that assist record will never be touched. In his 19 seasons, Stockton missed a grand total of 22 games, and finished his career averaging 10.5 assists a game. So not only did Johnny Stockton never miss a game, he also put up 10 assists a night regardless of his age. In his last season, at the age of 40, Stockton played in all 82 games and averaged almost 8 assists a night. At the time, this surprised no one because it was clear that John Stockton had two purposes in life: to play the game of basketball and to set his teammates up for easy shots. For Stockton, passing was always the #1 priority, and his numbers certainly show that. Like I said before, he holds the league record for assists with 15,806, which is over 3,500 more assists than #2 on the list, Jason Kidd, and almost 5,500 more than #3, Steve Nash. If a player were to average 10 assists a game and play all 82 games for 4 straight seasons, they would finish with only 3,280 assists, which means that John Stockton is at least 4 full seasons of all-star level passing ahead of everyone else in NBA history. And looking at the current NBA, Chris Paul is the only current player who is even close to on track to approach Stockton's record, and he only has 7,688 assists in 11 seasons. Which goes to show why I think this record will never be touched. Stockton combined two factors that make an unbreakable record. He put up absurd stats every season, and he was one of the most durable players in NBA history. To further emphasize my point, Stockton currently holds all 4 top spots on the NBA single season assist leaderboard. So yeah, I do not think this record will ever be touched. Number 2. Most championships in an NBA career. After 13 years in the NBA, Bill Russell retired as the ultimate winner. His Boston Celtics won 11 championships, including a streak of 8 in a row. Both of these numbers will never be touched because the NBA was a very different league when Russell played than what it is now. The modern NBA has, of course, 30 teams, which means that if every team in the NBA was equal, a single team would have a 1 in 30 chance of winning the championship. Russell won a majority of his championships in an 8 or 9 team league, which means if everything was equal, then a team would have a 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 chance of winning the championship. So already, just because of this, Bill Russell and the Celtics had a distinct advantage over modern teams. Now, to add on to this advantage, the NBA was way more stable in the 1950s and 60s than it is now. That's because back in Russell's era, there was no free agency or even a salary cap. If a player wanted to change teams, they would need to be either cut or traded. That meant that when the Celtics were able to collect a tremendous amount of Hall of Fame talent centered around Bill Russell, there was no danger of any of the players leaving. In fact, the lowest team continuity from one season to the next in Russell's career was 80%. Compare the salaries and free agency rules of the 1960s to the current NBA, where teams have to juggle salaries and create their roster under a salary cap, and the advantage is obvious. In today's NBA, it would be impossible to build a super team like the Celtics in the 1960s, because you just couldn't afford to keep that much talent. And speaking of talent, the reason the Celtics are the topic of discussion here is that they had a ridiculous amount of talent. Throughout his career, Bill Russell played with 16 different players who are now Hall of Famers. Adding on to this, the Celtics during Russell's 13 years with the team never had fewer than 4 Hall of Famers on a single team, and the 1963 team had 8 Hall of Famers on it. 8 Hall of Famers on one team? That's just insane. But it also explains how Bill Russell was able to win 11 championships and win 8 championships in a row. So until another NBA team has 8 Hall of Famers on their roster, I think these records are pretty safe. And number 1, too many Wilt Chamberlain records to count. Here is a list of NBA records that Wilt Chamberlain currently holds. Most points in a game, most points in a half, most field goals in a game, most points per game in a season, most rebounds in a career, most rebounds per game in a season, you get the point. In the current NBA's record book, Wilt holds 72 records. How does this even make sense? Well, the man was truly a player before his time. A 7-foot athletic freak in an era where the average big man was 6'8" and could barely dunk. It appears that even in the modern NBA, Wilt would be considered an ultra-athletic big man. There are stories of him dunking on a 12-foot rim at UCLA, or grabbing a quarter off the backboard and leaving 2 dimes and a nickel. He was the strongest player in the NBA as well as a former track star, competing in the 100-yard dash for the Kansas track team as well as winning the Big 8's conference high jump championship 3 years in a row. This should not be overlooked. Wilt was a big man who competed at the highest level of college track in multiple events and won. Add this to the fact that Wilt's era had several huge advantages for putting up crazy stats, such as way more possessions per game, which led to more shots, more rebounds, and more of everything really. And Wilt's name under what seems like half of the NBA's records begins to make sense. And perhaps Wilt's biggest advantage statistically is that he never left the court. He averaged almost 46 minutes per game throughout his entire career. He never fouled out of a single game, and he once had a season in which he averaged 48.5 minutes a game, which is another unbreakable record we can add to this list. Now, I know I did make a video proving that Wilt Chamberlain's 50-point per game season was not as impressive as you might think, but I have to say Wilt deserves all the credit in the world for breaking all of these records. He played every minute of every game because he had the stamina to do so. He shattered so many scoring records because he was the best player in the NBA, and he shattered so many rebound records because he was the most athletic and the strongest. Like I said before, the man was truly a player before his time. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. To my subscribers who have been sticking with me, thank you so much for supporting me. You know that means the world to me. And if you haven't subscribed, this channel is all about basketball. I make basketball history videos, I do what ifs, I look at conspiracies. Basically, if you're a basketball fan, I think you'll love this channel, and I'd love to have you subscribe. And now getting into this giveaway, guys, I'm going to be giving away 3 copies of NBA 2K17 as a thank you for 300,000 subscribers, because I never really said thank you, and that was a mistake on my part. I honestly just forgot. Thank you guys so much. So all you have to do is go follow me on Twitter and retweet the tweet I posted with the giveaway. I'm going to post the link down below. So I hope you guys are excited about this, and good luck. And as always, my dudes, have an awesome day, and cue the music.